Hey mama, are you tired of feeling stressed and overwhelmed trying to grow your online business with your babies at home? You desire more flexibility in your day, allowing you to pour into your family, yourself, and your business without running yourself into the ground. Mama, you can build your dream business and do it in a way that fits your current season of life. And I'm going to show you exactly how. Welcome to the Mompreneur podcast. I'm your host, Andria Singletary, daughter of the king, wife, mama of two, and life and business coach for mompreneurs. On this podcast, you will learn business strategies made for mamas just like you, who desire to be successful CEOs and fully present mamas without stress or overwhelm. So whether you're an entrepreneur who transitioned to a mompreneur or a mama turned mompreneur, I am here to support you. So grab your coffee, notebook, and pen, put in those earbuds, and let's dig in. Hey, mama. Welcome to another episode of the CEO Mama Confessions. So we're talking all about how your audience is craving relatable content. So before we get into that, I am going to remind you again about the Ditch the Algorithm and Get Visible Off Socials Masterclass. It is a free masterclass where we're going to be diving into leveraging podcast guesting, speaking engagements, and bundle collaborations to get visible outside of socials, to build your authority, build your brand awareness, get your name out there, and get you in front of more of your ideal clients. So click the link below in the episode description or head on over to the show notes to grab your spot for the free masterclass that we will be doing on Tuesday, June 4th. Okay, so let's get into this, how your audience is craving relatable content. So I'm pretty sure if you are on socials like Instagram, or maybe even if you're on Threads, you probably saw, last month, I think it was, in April, where there was this trend of posting about, social media being fake and the struggles business owners actually face. And there was a lot of debate around this trend about whether or not people were being authentic. And I saw a lot of people who were turned off by it because some of the people participating had never been that vulnerable with their audience or created relatable content. And so it didn't feel genuine. I saw conversations around a lot of the people who are participating in this trend were people who only posted the highlight reel on socials. And I found it interesting because it also ended up being a conversation that happened during the panel discussion when I spoke at the Podcasting Moms Conference. So during that discussion, Megan Moran, she was leading the panel. And so she asked me and the other panelists to really talk about if we felt podcast listeners still wanted, that step-by-step how-to content or more of an emotional connection through relatable content. And so it's really interesting just how you can kind of see the trends and how things shift in the online space. And so I told her, I was like, yeah, I believe that people want more of that emotional connection. They want to consume that relatable content. And I think the biggest challenge has been, we're only seeing the highlight reels. We're only seeing when people reach that point of, 6 and 7 figures and they're, living the dream life, doing their work wherever they want to across the world, when it's not necessarily their audience's reality. And so they don't feel that connection. And they didn't necessarily always share the struggles they face leading up to where they were, where they are now. And so, yes, people want that relatable content. People want to know that you've actually been where they currently are. And I think that's a big part of earning your audience's trust, in that you're not just speaking from this place of, I have arrived, but speaking from this place of, I was where you were, and I can show you how to get to where I am now. And sharing those vulnerabilities, sharing the struggles you faced, sharing how it's not easy. And I think that's the other thing too, is that when we see the highlight reels, it makes it seem like it was all so easy. And when in reality, we know it's not easy. Like, building a profitable business, it's not easy. But when you're constantly faced with content that only shows the highlight reels, you can start to question, like, okay, is it me? Am I doing something wrong? Is there a reason why I'm not at that level of success where other people are? Because we're not seeing the behind the scenes. We don't always get glimpses into that. And so when I was sharing on the panel, I shared how the mamas in my community, you guys, my listeners, the women on my email list, my clients, one of the things you guys always tell me is that you appreciate how relatable I am and how I keep it real. And that's what people want. They want to know, like, okay, you've been in the trenches, you actually get it. And now I see where you're at. And it gives me the encouragement that I can get there too. I won't be in this position forever. I won't be stuck here forever. And so I think that's kind of like what it's getting at, that people really want. And even just like based on this conversation and watching the trends in the online space, like, it is crystal clear that people are craving relatable content. They want to know that you actually get what they are feeling and experiencing, that you were once where they were and experienced those struggles they experienced too. Like, it's clear, like, there's no other way around it. And if we think about it too, the reality is that people crave connection before they buy. And this connection is created through being vulnerable and relatable. And people need to know that you truly do get it. Like, you've been where they were, and you went from there to where you are now. And so it helps people to see, like, it is possible for me. And this person, they understand my journey, so they can help me to get to where I want to be. And a big part of this is we have to incorporate it into our messaging. And so I want to talk a little bit about, like, how to actually incorporate your vulnerabilities in your messaging and, why this is so important. And so a big part of it is storytelling. We hear people talk about storytelling all the time, sharing your origin story and different things like that. And it truly is important. These are stories that you can share in your own content. These are stories that you can share when you're guesting on podcasts or even incorporating them into your speaking engagements. Like, really sharing how you started from point A and where you're at now, and it's kind of like you're mirroring your ideal clients. Like, hey, I started where you were. I know what you're feeling. I know the struggles you're facing. I know how hard it is, but I've figured out how to get you to where you want to be. And it's infusing that, infusing all of that into your storytelling. And that's a big part of being able to leverage some of these non-social media strategies like podcast guesting and speaking engagements, is really infusing that relatable content, that relatability piece into it. That's going to be one of the things that we really talk about in the Ditch the Algorithm and Get Visible Off Socials Masterclass, is really looking at how you can share those stories when you're guesting on podcasts, when you're speaking at, summits and different events. Now, I also want to preface this. You don't have to turn every challenge, heartache, trial into a piece of content. Like, your life doesn't have to be on display for the world to see. And it really is a fine line that you have to figure out for you. I've seen it at times where people can overshare and it can kind of turn their audience off. It can kind of feel like kind of trauma dumping, so to speak. And so you do want to be mindful of that. You can share your struggles, but you don't have to, one, you don't have to share anything you're not comfortable with sharing. You don't have to give people access to your entire life. That's not what I'm saying. But you need to find some key ways to connect with your ideal client through your content. So just make sure that you are using wisdom in what you do share with your audience and only share what you are truly comfortable sharing. Some things aren't meant to be shared. And like I said, they can do more damage than they can do good. And so you want to be relatable, but you also want to make sure you aren't oversharing to the point that people question your authority, where they feel like you're not being genuine. So to kind of give you guys some examples, like I'm very, transparent about the struggles of running a business as a mom of two little ones. I've shared some of the struggles we faced, like when my daughter had her seizure, when my son was diagnosed with autism, and so those are things that I felt comfortable sharing, that I knew you guys would be able to relate to, because those things happen. We have kids get sick, or we do find out that, one of our kids has special needs, or, needs additional support in other ways. And so I have kind of tied that into really prioritizing building a business that fits your current season of life, because your season of life can change at any given moment. Like we know seasons are temporary. And so you can have something happens that shifts you into a new season, and really making sure that you are building your business in a way to adapt to each new season. That's one of the cores of my messaging. And it's relatable, but I also don't overshare. There's a lot of things that I go through that I don't necessarily share, and I don't feel led to share. I only share those things that I know you guys can actually relate to and benefit from. But I don't just share the struggles. I also share what I've done to overcome them, how I've managed them, how I've pivoted when I needed to pivot, and different things like that. And so I think making sure you do a really good job of that, not just sharing the struggles, but also sharing how did you overcome it? How did you navigate it? I talk about coaching myself, like how I've coached myself through different situations. So I really feel like that is a huge part of it, and just like being able to do it in that way where it actually benefits your audience, where they actually gain something from it, and it doesn't impact how they view you. It doesn't cause them to question your authority or different things like that. So what I want you to do for your homework for this episode is really look at who your ideal client is and how you relate to them. And take some time, and you can type it out, you can write it out, but like really like thinking through what stories you can share to build that connection with your ideal client that'll make you more relatable, that will really help them to see that you truly do get it. Like you aren't just saying this to say it, but you get it, you understand, but also you can help them get to where they want to be because you were once in their shoes. So take some time and do that. And I promise you, you will have stories for days. Like you have so many stories. And sometimes we think that they need to be like these, wow, awe-inspiring, earth-shattering stories. It doesn't. Like it can be something so simple. but it's relatable. It's things that your ideal clients are experiencing, that they understand, that they get it, that it's the story of their life. So really take some time to reflect on that and then jot it down. So that way you will have these stories to pull from when you are going to guest on a podcast, when you are speaking at a summit or, a conference or anything like that. When you're creating your own content, you can infuse the storytelling into your content. So that is it for this episode. I would love to know, what are your thoughts on incorporating vulnerabilities in your messaging and infusing storytelling? So send me a DM over at Mompreneur on Instagram. I would love to hear from you. And also, if you haven't registered for the free masterclass, get on that. This is something we're going to be talking about, with your messaging and everything, and really looking at how you can infuse your vulnerabilities, infuse that relatability into your non-social media visibility strategy. All right, Mama, I'll catch you in the next episode. Well, Mama, that's a wrap on today's episode. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to hang with me. If you enjoyed today's episode, will you do me a favor and follow the podcast and leave a review? Hitting that follow button and sharing your thoughts about the podcast are the best ways to ensure that other mamas like you find this show. Your review also lets me know if you're enjoying this podcast, so make sure to share your thoughts before you go. All right, Mama, I'll catch you in the next episode.